Before we begin, it's important to know that this is a dramatized story inspired by real opportunities in specialty farming. While the characters are fictional, the challenges, decisions, and farming concepts are rooted in reality. For 25 years, Michael Carter believed he had built a life that nothing could shake. Every morning before sunrise, he left home with the same promise to himself: to provide for his family, no matter how hard the work became. Like millions of workers, he believed loyalty and dedication would always be enough. But sometimes, life changes with a single conversation, and the future you planned disappears before lunch. Inside the factory office, Michael sits across from his manager. A white envelope rests on the desk between them. The manager's expression says everything before a single word is spoken. Michael quietly reads the letter. His hands begin to tremble. 25 years of service. Gone. Please subscribe, like, and comment to stay tuned for more contents like this. He walks through the factory one final time carrying a small cardboard box filled with family photos, a coffee mug, and a worn pair of work gloves. His co-workers watch silently, unsure of what to say. Factories had once been symbols of stability. Generations built careers inside their walls, expecting to retire where they had spent their working lives. But changing markets, rising costs, and automation were reshaping industries across the country. Michael wasn't fired because he lacked skill. He became another casualty of change. The job that had supported his family for decades vanished in less than 15 minutes. What he didn't know was that this painful walk toward the parking lot would eventually lead him somewhere he had never imagined. Rain falls gently outside as Michael arrives home earlier than usual. Sarah notices immediately. He places the envelope on the kitchen table without speaking. Sarah slowly reads the letter. The room falls silent. Later that evening, Emily enters carrying a college brochure, excited to discuss her future. She stops when she sees her parents' expressions. No one knows what to say. The brochure quietly slips from her hands onto the table. Job loss rarely affects just one person. It reaches every corner of a household. Dreams are postponed. Plans become uncertain. Every unopened bill suddenly feels heavier than the last. Over the following weeks, Michael searched relentlessly for work. He submitted application after application, attended interviews, and waited beside the phone for calls that never came. Each rejection slowly chipped away at the confidence he had spent decades building. One afternoon, while walking through his quiet neighborhood trying to clear his mind, Michael notices his elderly neighbor, Thomas Reed, tending to a shaded woodland behind his home. Thomas smiles and invites him over. Instead of rows of corn or vegetables, Michael sees something unusual growing beneath the forest canopy. Small green plants, neatly spaced, protected with great care. Curious, Michael asks what they are. Thomas smiles. Not many people ask that anymore. Thomas had spent most of his life studying plants that many farmers ignored. While others focused on large fields and fast harvests, he believed some of nature's greatest treasures preferred patience over speed. And beneath those towering trees was one of the world's most fascinating specialty crops. Thomas gently kneels beside one of the plants. He brushes away a little soil, revealing only the top of a thick, slowly developing root before covering it again. This, he says softly, is ginseng. Michael looks confused. Thomas explains that for centuries, ginseng has been prized in different parts of the world for its rarity and unique qualities. Growing it successfully isn't about rushing for quick profits. It requires suitable woodland conditions, careful management, and years of patience before harvest. Michael listens closely. For the first time in months, hope begins to replace despair. Yet one question remains. If this plant is so valuable, Michael asks, why isn't everyone growing it? Thomas pauses. A knowing smile crosses his face. Because most people aren't willing to wait long enough to find out what patience can become. The camera slowly rises above the forest as sunlight filters through the leaves. At that moment, Michael wasn't looking at a crop. He was looking at a possibility. But every opportunity comes with a price, and he was about to discover that growing ginseng would demand far more than money. Can Michael afford to start? Why does ginseng take years to mature? What costly mistakes do most beginners make? Will his family support such a risky decision, or will the pressure force him to give up before the first harvest? The following morning, Michael returns to Thomas's woodland carrying nothing more than a notebook and 100 questions. Sunlight filters through towering maple and oak trees, casting shifting patterns across the forest floor. Every step feels like the beginning of a journey he never expected to take. Thomas kneels beside a mature ginseng plant without disturbing it. Thomas, most people see a forest and think it's empty. I see a place where patience grows. He explains that ginseng thrives in cool, shaded hardwood forests with rich, well-drained soil. Unlike many crops, it cannot simply be planted anywhere and expected to flourish. Success depends on understanding the land, protecting the plants, and respecting the slow pace of nature. Specialty farming isn't about finding shortcuts. It's about matching the right crop to the right environment. Ginseng has earned its reputation not because it's easy to grow, but because producing healthy, high-quality roots requires years of careful stewardship. For Michael, the challenge wasn't just learning how to grow a plant. It was learning how to think differently about time itself. Before leaving, Thomas offers one final warning. If you're looking for quick money, don't plant a single seed. That evening, Michael spreads notebooks, maps, and printed articles across the kitchen table. Sarah watches quietly as he explains everything Thomas has taught him. The idea sounds almost impossible. Years of waiting, no guaranteed success, limited savings. Sarah doesn't dismiss the dream, but she asks the question weighing on both their minds. Sarah, if this doesn't work, what happens to us? Michael looks around the home they built together. Michael, if I keep doing nothing, we've already lost. At least this gives us a chance. Emily listens from the hallway. For the first time since her father's layoff, she sees determination replacing fear. Every meaningful decision carries uncertainty. The difference between regret and opportunity often begins with the willingness to take a calculated risk. Michael carefully clears invasive weeds without disturbing the forest's natural balance. He studies the slope of the land, the moisture in the soil, and the shade created by the towering trees. Every task feels unfamiliar. His hands, once accustomed to factory machinery, now work gently with soil and fallen leaves. Neighbors slow their cars to watch. Some smile politely. Others quietly question whether he's lost hope or common sense. To outsiders, Michael appeared to be working endlessly without producing anything visible. There were no tractors covering acres of farmland, no towering fields ready for harvest. Only a man spending long days beneath a canopy of trees, believing that invisible progress could eventually become visible success. As autumn approaches, Thomas helps him plant the first seeds. The forest grows silent. The waiting begins. Winter arrives. Snow blankets the woodland, hiding every trace of the newly planted seeds. Months later, spring finally returns. Tiny green shoots begin pushing through the leaf litter. Michael smiles, but the excitement is short-lived. Thomas notices signs of disease on several young plants. Some disappear entirely. Others never emerge. Michael's shoulders sink. Michael, did I fail already? Thomas calmly shakes his head. Thomas, every grower loses plants. The question isn't whether you'll face setbacks. It's whether you'll keep going after them. Nature rewards persistence, but never promises perfection. Every successful grower carries stories of seasons that tested their resolve. A cinematic montage unfolds. Spring, summer, autumn, winter, again and again. Michael takes part-time jobs to support his family while continuing to care for the woodland before sunrise and after sunset. Emily graduates from college. Sarah remains his steady source of encouragement, reminding him that progress isn't always measured by what can be seen. Meanwhile, beneath layers of leaves and soil, the ginseng roots continue their slow, unseen development. The camera moves underground, revealing the roots quietly growing larger with each passing season. The greatest transformations often happen where no one is watching. While the world measured success by immediate results, Michael learned a different lesson. Growth doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes it happens silently, beneath the surface, waiting for the right moment to reveal its value. One evening, Thomas walks beside Michael through the woodland. He gently digs beside a single mature plant, exposing only part of the root before covering it again. He smiles. It's almost time. Michael looks down in amazement. After years of uncertainty, the harvest is finally within reach. Harvest day finally arrives. Will the roots be valuable enough to justify years of patience? What will a specialty buyer offer? Can Michael's gamble truly change his family's future, or will the reward fall short of his hopes? The first rays of autumn sunlight filter through the woodland canopy. A cool breeze rustles the fallen leaves as Michael walks slowly toward the planting site, carrying a small digging fork, gloves, and a woven basket. His movements are careful, almost reverent. Sarah and Emily stand a few steps behind, watching quietly. Thomas smiles, but says nothing. Michael kneels and gently loosens the soil around the first mature plant. A thick, beautifully formed ginseng root slowly emerges from the earth. He stares at it in silence. Years of uncertainty suddenly become real. The first rays of autumn sunlight filter through the woodland canopy. A cool breeze rustles the fallen leaves as Michael walks slowly toward the planting site, carrying a small digging fork, gloves, and a woven basket. His movements are careful, almost reverent. Sarah and Emily stand a few steps behind, watching quietly. Thomas smiles, but says nothing. Michael kneels and gently loosens the soil around the first mature plant. A thick, beautifully formed ginseng root slowly emerges from the earth. He stares at it in silence. Years of uncertainty suddenly become real. Several days later, Michael and Thomas arrive at a specialty herb buyer's office. Shelves display carefully dried herbs and botanical products collected from growers across the region. Daniel Brooks, an experienced buyer, greets them warmly. He examines each root one at a time. He studies their shape, their age, their condition, their quality. The room becomes painfully quiet. Michael waits anxiously. Finally, Daniel places the last root on the table. He smiles. "Daniel, you've taken good care of these." It shows. Michael exhales for what feels like the first time all day. In specialty agriculture, quality often matters just as much as quantity. Buyers evaluate crops carefully, and prices can vary significantly depending on factors such as age, appearance, market conditions, and demand. Growing the crop is only part of the journey. Daniel presents Michael with an offer. Michael reads the document slowly. He doesn't celebrate immediately. Instead, he closes his eyes. Every sleepless night, every rejected job application, every winter he questioned himself, every sacrifice his family made, it all comes rushing back. Sarah gently takes his hand. Emily begins to cry. Thomas simply nods, proud of the man Michael has become. The greatest reward wasn't the payment itself. It was the realization that perseverance had carried Michael through the most difficult chapter of his life. His family hadn't simply survived uncertainty. They had grown stronger because they faced it together. Months later, Michael's woodland is thriving. He expands responsibly, planting new areas while carefully protecting the forest ecosystem. Instead of chasing rapid growth, he focuses on quality, sustainability, and continuous learning. Former co-workers begin visiting his woodland. Some ask how much money they could make. Michael smiles. "Michael, the first question shouldn't be how much you can earn. It should be whether you're willing to care for something that asks for years before giving anything back." His words leave the visitors thoughtful. The most successful growers understand that farming isn't a race. It's a long conversation with nature, one built on observation, patience, and respect. The camera slowly rises above the woodland. Golden autumn leaves sway gently as sunlight streams through the trees. Michael walks with Sarah and Emily along a narrow forest path. Laughter replaces the silence that once filled their home. Thomas watches from a distance, smiling quietly before continuing his own work among the trees. This story is fictional, but the lesson behind it is real. Specialty farming has created meaningful opportunities for people willing to learn, adapt, and think beyond traditional approaches. But every crop comes with its own challenges, costs, and risks. Success is never guaranteed, and careful research is essential before making any farming decision. Michael's life wasn't transformed by a magical plant. It was transformed by resilience. Losing his job forced him to see possibilities he had never noticed before. Ginseng became part of his journey, but courage was what truly changed his future. Sometimes, the greatest opportunities don't appear in crowded places where everyone is looking. Sometimes they grow quietly beneath a canopy of trees, waiting for someone patient enough to discover them. And perhaps the same is true for the opportunities waiting in your own life. If this story inspired you, tell us in the comments. What would you do if you had 1 acre of suitable woodland? Would you explore a specialty crop like ginseng? Or would you choose a different path? We'd love to hear your thoughts. If you enjoy cinematic farming stories that combine real agricultural concepts with inspiring fictional journeys, subscribe and join us for the next adventure. There are countless hidden opportunities growing around the world, and we're just getting started. Patience plants possibilities. Knowledge helps them grow.